Day. Everybody is having a good day. Mangione case court a few days ago. We have the court docs and pictures of everybody can hear. So it seems, I don't know, there's a pattern with bullets always being inscribed, written journals, manifest. That's what we're. If you like this content, want to help, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Still being buried in the algorithm. So liking and subscribing will really help. Get into Mangione's case. I want to. Tanner Horner is still the penalty phase testimony from doctors, and as soon as the jury comes back with that decision, I will let love and prayers to Grand's family. That Joni work count one from at least in or about November 24th, 2024 in our or about December. Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Luigi. The defendant traveled in interstate commerce with the intent to kill, injure, harass, intimidate, and place under surveillance, harass another person, and of as a result of such travel engaged in conduct that placed that person in fear of death, of serious bodily injury. Person engaging in conduct caused the death of that person. Joni traveled from Georgia to New York for the purpose of stalking and killing Brian Thompson. While in New York, Mangione stalked and shot and killed Thompson in the vicinity of West 54th Street Avenue. Count 2, stalking. And then harass, intimidate, place under surveillance, harass. Got cell phone, state wires, and highways, internet to plan and carry out the stalking. Hello? So, sorry. Internet to plan and carry out the stalking, shooting, and killing of Brian Thompson in the vicinity of West 54th Street. On or about December 4th, 2024, the Southern District, New York, and elsewhere, Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant during and in relation to crimes of violence for which he may be prosecuted in the court of the United States, namely stalking offenses charged in counts 1 and 2. Count 4, firearm offense. And can everybody hear okay? On or about December 4th, 2024, Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Luigi Mangione, the defendant, during and in relation to crimes of violence for which he may be prosecuted in the court of the United States, namely stalking offenses charged in counts 1 and 2 of this complaint, knowingly used and carried a firearm, and in furtherance of the such crimes possessed a firearm which was brandished and discharged, and which was equipped with a firearm silencer and firearm muffler. The murder of Brian Thompson. I am a special agent with the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and assigned to the FBI's Violent Crimes Task Force. I have been personally involved in the investigation in this matter. This affidavit is based upon my conversations with other law enforcement officers, my examination of documents obtained through the court, authorized search warrant, my review of documents prepared by others, security camera video, and my involvement in this investigation. Because this affidavit is being submitted for limited purpose of establishing probable cause, it does not include all of the facts and that I have learned during the course of my investigation. Where the contents of the documents and actions, statements, and conversations of others are reported herein. They are reported in substance and in part, except where otherwise indicated. Based on my participation in the investigation, my conversations with other law enforcement officers, my review of the documents prepared by others, and my review of the security video, I have learned, among other things, the following. On December 4th at approximately 6:45 a.m., Brian Thompson, the victim, the chief executive officer of Nationwide Health Insurance Company, was shot and killed by a masked assailant while walking on 54th Street toward a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, where a company investor conference was scheduled to begin at 8 a.m. As discussed below, the shooter was later identified to be Luigi Mangione, the defendant. Security camera video showed the shooter, who was wearing a gray backpack, come from between two parked cars, walk up behind the victim, and shoot the victim in the leg and back outside of Midtown's hotel entrance. The firearm the shooter used appeared to have sound suppressing device or silencer attached to the front of its barrel. A still image from the security camera video of the shooting provided below. There he is. Law enforcement personnel who responded to the scene of the shooting recovered, among other items, spent 9mm shell casings and at least one round of live 9mm ammunition. The words deny, delay, and depose were written on the side of some of the shell casings. Responding law enforcement personnel also recovered a cell phone in the vicinity of the location where the shooting had occurred. Based on my participation in this investigation, my conversations with other law enforcement officers, my examination of documents obtained through court-authorized search warrant, my review of the documents prepared by others, and my review of the security camera video, I know that over a course of the next several days, investigators retrieved and reviewed hundreds of hours of recordings from nearby security cameras to track the shooter's movements both before and after the murder. From that review, investigators were able to formulate the following timeline of the shooter's movements from November 24th to including December 4th. On November 24th, at approximately 10:11 p.m., the shooter arrived in New York City on an intercity bus at the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan. The bus originated in Atlanta, Georgia. The shooter took a taxi to the area around Midtown Hotel and stayed in the area for approximately 1 hour before taking another taxi to a hotel located in the Upper West Side, Manhattan. Like a misspelling, hostel instead of hotel. The shooter registered at the hostel under the name Mark Rosario and provided a false New Jersey driver's license as a form of identification. See the false New Jersey identification. But he was registered under Mark Rosario. Does have his picture. Shooter was checking into the hotel. The desk clerk asked the shooter to remove his mask, which he did, revealing his face to a security camera as shown below. Other than this interaction with the desk clerk, the shooter consistently kept his mask on throughout his time in New York while inside the hostel. This is 2024, so it is odd that he's still sporting a mask. Yes, unless you're playing a crime. Other than this interaction with the desk clerk, the shooter consistently kept his mask on throughout this time in New York, including while inside his hotel. On December 4th, 2024, at approximately 5:35 a.m., the shooter left the hotel wearing a gray backpack and rode an electric bicycle down Central Park West location near Midtown Hotel as shown below. Here he is again. Bicycle, who they say is him. At approximately 5:41 a.m., the shooter walked around the area of Midtown Hotel and at one point purchased items from a nearby coffee shop. The shooter then returned to the bench in the vicinity of Midtown Hotel on at least one occasion prior to the murder. The shooter was depicted using a cell phone. At approximately 6:45 a.m., after waiting near the Midtown Hotel for approximately an hour, the shooter saw and approached the victim, shot the victim multiple times, then fled on foot to West 55th Street, where the shooter mounted the electric bicycle and rode towards Central Park. After disappearing inside the park for a period of time, the shooter was captured on video again exiting the park near 77th Street. Central Park was riding north on Central Park West. Emerged from the park, the shooter was no longer carrying the gray backpack shown below. Backpack. There he is without it. Approximately 6:58 a.m., security camera footage captured the shooter riding the electric bicycle near West 85th Street and Columbus Avenue 2 minutes later. At approximately 7 a.m., the shooter was captured on video walking near 86th Street and Columbus Avenue without the electric bicycle. At approximately 7:04, the shooter entered a taxi that drove him to George Washington Bridge bus terminal in the vicinity of West 179th Street and Fort Washington Avenue in Upper Manhattan. The shooter's face was captured by a camera in the taxi as shown below. All his glory. At approximately 7:30 a.m., the video footage from the George Washington Bridge bus terminal captured the shooter entering the facility. No video footage showed the shooter leaving the bus terminal, suggesting that the shooter left New York City. On or about December the 6th, law enforcement officers searching Central Park found a gray backpack matching the appearance of the gray backpack worn by the shooter as depicted below. The arrest and identification of the shooter based on my participation in the investigation, my conversations with other law enforcement officers, my examination of documents and items obtained through a court-authorized search warrant, my review of documents prepared by others, and my review of security camera video, I know, among other things, on December 9th at approximately 9:14 a.m., a worker at a fast food restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania, called the police about a male customer later identified as Luigi Nicholas Mangione, defendant who the worker believed resembled the photos of the shooter that had been broadcast on the media following the victim's murder. Members of the Altoona Police Department responded and encountered Mangione, who also believed matched the appearance of the shooter. Approached by responding officers and asked for identification, Mangione offered the false New Jersey ID used by the shooter to check into the hotel. Mangione was later found in possession of a loaded 9mm pistol and silencer consistent with the weapon used to kill the victim. Clothing that matched apparel and the shooter wore in the security camera videos, a notebook, several $1,000s in cash, an envelope associated with an FDIC insured bank, and a letter addressed to the feds. The 9mm pistol and silencer were later tested and found to be operable by the ballistics examiner from the New York City Police Department. Photographs of the firearm silencer recovered from Mangione are depicted below. I'm not really sure what this is. Silencer. Or what that is. It doesn't look like it'd be the notebook. The notebook contains several handwritten pages that express hostility towards health insurance industry and wealthy executives in particular. For example, the notebook contained the following statements and entries that appear to correspond to particular dates. An entry marked as 8/15, the notebook described how the details are finally coming together, and I'm glad in a way that I've procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about acronym for the company. The notebook entry also stated that the target is insurance because it checks every box. And I'll submit to you, odd because I do believe his parents are in the business of insurance. In an entry marked 10/22, the notebook stated 1.5 months. This investor conference is a true windfall, and the most importantly, message becomes self-evident later on in the entry of the notebook describes the intent to whack the CEO of the insurance companies at its investors conference. As described above, October 22, 2024 was approximately 6 weeks before the date of the murder of the victim, which occurred on the date of the company's investor conference. The feds later recovered from Mangione, stated, "I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial, some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience based on my own research. I believe that CAD refers to computer aided design." The Fed's letter also stated, "P.S. You can check serial numbers to verify this is all self-funded, my own ATM withdrawals." Based on all of the above, my review of the photographs of the shooter and my review of the rest of the photographs of Luigi Mangione, the defendant, I respectfully submit that Mangione is the shooter who shot and killed the victim on December 4th. Additionally, the notebook entries, the Fed letters, the shooter's apparent surveillance of the Midtown Hotel on November 24 and December 4, shooter's use of counter surveillance techniques, and escape from New York City all suggest that the shooter undertook extensive efforts to identify the victim, place, and the victim under surveillance and track the victim's whereabouts in a time period leading up to the murder. Below are surveillance stills of the shooter and arrest photograph of Mangione. It's, I mean, that's the pictures of him at the hotel. And oh, inside the taxi again. So wherefore, I respectfully request that a warrant be issued for the arrest of Luigi Nicholas Mangione for the defendant and that he be imprisoned or bailed as the case may be. That was his arrest date. How we got there. And if you didn't know, he was facing the death penalty and he is being charged federally and with the state. So this is the reason why it was pushed back just recently. The hearing that they had a couple days ago was because they're complaining, how can they be in two places at once? So then we got this, another motion. The government respectfully submits this letter in response to, oh, well, I started before the other one, my bad. So he submitted this first, or his defense did on behalf of him. So, defendant Luigi Mangione's motion to preclude the government from seeking the death penalty. When the United States plans to kill one of its citizens, it must follow statutory and internal procedures. Defendant Mangione seeks court intervention now, not merely because of the government has failed to follow these procedures, but because it has abandoned them. He seeks court intervention because Attorney General has explicitly stated that she has ordered death penalty to carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. Mr. Mangione's counsel asked for 3 months to prepare for a fulsome mitigation submission of the Department of Justice Capital Committee and was ignored. So the Attorney General they are speaking of is Pam Bondi. The stakes could not be higher. The United States government intends to kill Mr. Mangione as a political stunt. We appreciate and will address the province and the discretion of the executive branch of government and how in the usual course courts defer to the executive's established procedures, but the Attorney General's actions and public statements in this case have not followed the usual course. Because the Attorney General has chosen to proceed in this way, Mr. Mangione's due process rights have already been violated. And the manner in which the government has acted has prejudiced the grand jury pool and corrupted the grand jury process. Sound familiar? Sounds familiar to me. Sounds just like Tyler Robinson. We seek 2 forms of relief from the court. First, because of Attorney General's direction to the SDNY prosecutors issued publicly as a press release to seek the death sentence for Mr. Mangione is political, arbitrary, capricious, a breach of established death penalty protocol, and has new inevitably prejudiced this process. The government should be precluded from seeking the death penalty. Second, because of the highly public nature of the Attorney General's press release directive, her follow-up Instagram post stating plainly Mangione is guilty of murder. I mean, does all this sound familiar, guys? Hi, Lainey. It sounds just like a play out of the Charlie Kirk assassination and the defense and prosecution, as does the statements being put out there by government and everybody else. I mean, it's literally a play from it. Her follow-up Instagram post stating plainly Mangione is guilty of murder, though he is still unindicted, let alone convicted. Sounds familiar. And her statement that Mangione should be executed because he committed 2 particular statutory aggravating factors. The Attorney General has prejudiced the grand jury process in this district, according to any grand jury that is or to be impaneled on Mr. Mangione's case should be polled on their exposure to the Attorney General's improper statements and actions. Of course, as explained below, the impropriety of the Attorney General's conduct in this clear from her obvious violation of the local rule. The Attorney General compounded this prejudice by appearing on television on Sunday, April 6th, and stating she has received death threats for seeking the death penalty. Can't make this up, guys. They haven't gotten any better, in my opinion, of all the people that should know better. Why? Why would you run the risk of this being a major issue? Why? And then they didn't stop here. They're doing it all. I just did the motions with you guys 2 days ago that the defense has filed in Tyler Robinson's. They did the exact same thing, only bigger. The president, all of TPUSA, all of them have all ran their mouth and pretty much have him guilty before he hasn't even had a preliminary hearing. So as a result, this court should preclude the government from seeking the death penalty, order that the proposed federal grand jurors be screened for exposure to the Attorney General's prejudicial statements, order the Attorney General to certify he has read the local rule, restrain the Attorney General from extrajudicial statements in violation of that rule could prejudice Mr. Mangione's right to a fair hearing by a grand jury, including the grand jury's consideration of death-eligible offenses and factors. Order the government to produce for in-camera inspection any memorandum, documents, and notes from the SDNY consideration of the death penalty, as well as the memorandum, documents, notes provided by the Attorney General as part of her careful consideration of the evidence. Order the government to produce to Mr. Mangione any emails, records, documents, memorandum, notes, and communication between the government official and anyone advocating for the death sentence or any particular sentence, in this case, by or on behalf of any business, corporate interest, lobbyist, or other party directly or indirectly. Oh, hey, way to go, government. Yet again, another case you have ran your mouth on. So, the Attorney General's April 1st press release. On the morning of April 1st, 2025, United States Attorney General issued a press release. The title of the press release is Attorney General Pamela Bondi directs prosecutors to seek the death penalty for Luigi Mangione. In the release, the Attorney General wrote, after careful consideration, I have directed the federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case as we carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. How do you guys feel? Do you guys feel safe? Just wondering. Hi, Joshua. Yes, make America great or safe again. Not feeling so safe. They put emphasis added. The Attorney General continued, as alleged, Luigi Mangione stalked, murdered United Healthcare executive Brian Thompson on December 4th. The murder was an act of political violence. I mean, this is like, it's like reading a play right from Tyler Robinson. It's eerie. It's predictable. Mangione's actions involved substantial planning, premeditation, and because the murder took place in public with bystanders nearby, may have posed a grave risk of death to additional persons, emphasis added. The Attorney General concluded press release by stating, this is the line with the Attorney General Bondi's Day 1 memo as Attorney General entitled Reviving the Federal Death Penalty and Lifting the Moratorium on Federal Execution. Thank God she's not Attorney General anymore. Not that it didn't already damage what has been done here. The Attorney General's statements were immediately and widely reported by the press outlets around the world, including the New York Times, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, BBC, Reuters, Associated Press, Al Jazeera, CNN, Fox News, Law.com, Guardian, Washington Post, CBS News, USA Today, Bloomberg, Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune. I think it's safe to say it got around. Rather than authorizing the SDNY prosecutors to seek the death penalty. Yeah, like, can they not make their own decisions? No, she had to go in public and do this. Rather than authorizing SDNY prosecutors to seek the death penalty in a non-public communication, the Attorney General saw fit to direct them to do so via press release. Sound familiar? Kind of like Governor Cox and Ash Patel and the President, Charlie Kirk. In this release, she did not once say that Mr. Mangione had not yet been indicted for any federal crime, or that these are mere allegations. She never once discussed the presumption of innocence or that Mr. Mangione is innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, because not in this government. No, no. She assured the country that she gave the matter careful consideration. That gives me the warm and fuzzies. But as indicated below, when the defense asked for 3 months to conduct an albeit arbitrated mitigation investigation and prepare a submission to the current administration's capital case section, this request was ignored. Again, sounds familiar. Also, to the extent she referred to two statutory aggravating factors, she materially misstated one of them. She also called the incident an act of political violence, even though Mr. Mangione is charged in a complaint with stalking a single person who was not a politician or even political. The Attorney General's press release is relevant because it is evidence of the political arbitrary nature of this decision. However, the Attorney General was not done making public statements about this case. Of course not. Her Instagram post. Shortly after the General's press release, Attorney General launched an Instagram account. The inaugural 2 posts of Attorney General's new Instagram account were a photograph of the Attorney General standing before the seal of the United States Department of Justice following message. Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and father of 2 young children, was premeditated. Cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. After careful consideration, I have directed the federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case as we carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. The Attorney General again failed to mention that Mr. Mangione has not been indicted, nor that he is presumed to be innocent. She did reemphasize that the decision was based on politics, specifically the administration agenda to make America safe again. She was still not done making public statements and prejudicing Mr. Mangione. On April 6, 2025, the Attorney General appeared on Fox News Sunday concerning Luigi Mangione case and her direction to prosecutors to seek the death penalty. He stated the following: the president's directive was very clear. We are to seek the death penalty when possible. It hadn't been done in 4 years. I was a capital prosecutor. So she was a friggin' prosecutor, and she's still out here. The guy hasn't even been indicted. I was a capital prosecutor. I tried death penalty cases throughout my career. If there was ever a death case, this is one. This guy is charged with hunting down a CEO, a father of 2, a married man, hunting him down and executing him. I feel like these young people have lost their way. Yeah. I was receiving death threats for seeking the death penalty on someone who is charged with an execution of a CEO. We are going to continue to do the right thing. We are not going to be deterred by political well, I almost can't even read this political motives. I've seen a protester walking down the street here, free Luigi. I mean, this guy is charged with violent crime, and we are going to seek the death penalty whenever possible. So I didn't read this until I'm reading it with y'all right now. So my shock is because no, God no. Her replacement her replacement is his personal attorney. No, definitely not any better. Definitely not any better. It's probably right up there with just as bad. So the Attorney General's television appearance was similar to her first 2 public statements in that she never mentioned that Mr. Mangione was not indicted, nor that he had the presumption of innocence. She emphasized for the 3rd time that her decision to seek the death penalty was based on the president's directives, specifically that the administration will seek the death sentence whenever possible. He invoked her personal experience, saying that she was a capital prosecutor who tried death penalty cases, and that if there was ever a death case, this is one. Attorney General stated during her television appearance that the reason she ordered death sentence was because the alleged was a CEO. Counsel is aware of no provision in the death penalty statute or the Department of Justice death penalty protocol that allows for consideration of social, economic, or professional status of an alleged homicide victim determining whether to seek the death penalty. So apparently they just make up rules as they go. Not that we didn't already know that. The Attorney General's pattern of public statements show with remarkable clarity and consistency that she ordered the capital prosecution unabashedly for political reasons, that her statements prejudice any potential grand jury pool, and the victim's professional status as a CEO was relevant to her decision. As will be shown below, her decision was also reached without any regard to established Department of Justice death penalty protocol, which she has wholly abandoned. Odd, considering she was a capital prosecutor. Don't you think? But I can't help but think that this is the very reason why all of these people were all appointed their positions when Trump made office. He put all these people in, Ash Patel, all of them, for this reason. In my opinion, allegedly. Following an investigation undertaken almost exclusively by Manhattan District Attorney and New York City Police Department, Luigi Mangione was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania on Monday, December the 9th. 4 days later, on Friday, December 13th, the undersigned counsel, Karen Friedman, I'm not even going to try to say this, I'm going to kill it, then Philo and Mark with the same last name visited with him for the first time in jail in Pennsylvania. On Monday, December the 16th, counsel informed the Manhattan District Attorney that Mr. Mangione was waiving extradition to New York to be prosecuted by the Manhattan District Attorney. It bears noting that the reason the District Attorney was seeking a waiver of extradition and that Mr. Mangione agreed to one was because there was no federal case on the horizon. Had there been a federal case, he would have been arrested by the FBI, been brought to the nearest federal magistrate judge, and the case would have started in that fashion, not requiring the additional step of waiver of extradition. Mangione's counsel made arrangements with the Manhattan District Attorney, New York State Supreme Court Justice Gregory Caro for Mr. Mangione to appear in New York State Supreme Court on Thursday, December the 19th for arraignment on first-degree murder. Indictment returned in New York County. Meanwhile, law enforcement was orchestrating the mother of all perp walks, attended by none other than the New York City mayor. As we prepared for the Supreme Court arraignment, counsel was contacted by a newspaper reporter who asked, in substance, whether it was true that the feds were stealing the case. Seemingly a shock to all, including the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Turned out to be true. And this sounds like a shit show, and guy hasn't even, I mean, my opinion, allegedly. This is right up here. Tyler Robinson. I mean, I don't know if he's innocent, but this sure does seem like a play right out of the feds flop. Counsel for Mr. Mangione has been in regular contact with the prosecutors from the SDNY assigned to the case. In early January 2025, the prosecutors and counsel emailed a meeting with the Capitol Review Committee under prior administration on Wednesday. On January 8th, the prosecutors sent an email setting the time of this meeting on Monday, January 13th, and further advised that the defense was free to make a written submission, but one was not required. On Sunday, January 12th, defense emailed an 11-page written submission to the capital case section and 3 SDNY prosecutors detailing why the death penalty was inappropriate in this case. January 13th, defense made oral presentation to the members of the capital case section and SDNY prosecutors. January 24th, defense counsel spoke with the prosecutors who said that there was no decision yet and that the decision was imminent. On Tuesday, the 4th of February, defense counsel spoke to SDNY prosecutors who indicated that the Capitol Review Committee, under previous administration, had not made a decision. So which is it? Was it made or was it not made? Because it sounded like Pam made that decision under the president's skin. During this and other calls, the SDNY prosecutors informed counsel and the current administration had not yet assembled a functioning Capitol Review Committee due to the recent change in administration. Also on February 4th, the court appointed Abraham Avi Moskowitz as learned counsel. On Thursday, February 6th, defense counsel emailed SDNY prosecutors that if the capital crimes section is unable to make a decision based on our submission, we respectfully request 3 months in order to give us time to conduct a thorough mitigation investigation in order to submit additional information. On March 12th, counsel spoke to SDNY prosecutors who stated a decision of the death penalty would be reached without waiting for the defense to submit mitigating factors. Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, why even bother? It's like he has no constitutional rights. On April 1st, the Attorney General issued a press release directing the SDNY prosecutors to seek the death penalty. Arguments made and mitigating factors shared with the previous administration capital case section have been seemingly ignored by the Attorney General. As noted, on Wednesday, January 8th, SDNY prosecutors informed the defense counsel and the capital case committee was available for a Teams virtual meeting on Monday, January 13th. The prosecutors further explained that because of the impending change in the administration, the Monday deadline was firm. I mean, it's only somebody's life. Why would we give them any kind of continuation or time? Sound familiar? He hasn't even been indicted or been to court yet. It's insane. On the morning of Sunday, January 12th, counsel submitted an 11-page single-space letter. On Monday, January 13th, counsel discussed the issues raised in the letter with SDNY prosecutors and then constituted a capital case committee. The committee appeared to accept the arguments of counsel and did not push back as to any of them. Solely the court can understand the points made. We briefly outlined them here. The pending Manhattan DA case undermines the federal interest in the capital punishment. Counsel argued that the Justice Manual speaks precisely to a situation whereas a defendant is being actively prosecuted by a local prosecutor for the same conduct charged under federal law, and where the local charges carry the possibility of life in prison. On this point, the Justice Manual provides as follows. Prior to charging capital offense, prosecutors must carefully assess whether an accused is the subject of effective prosecution in another jurisdiction. For this purpose, the legal unavailability of the capital punishment in the state where the crime was committed should not form the basis for concluding the state cannot effectively prosecute the case. Thoroughly review the substantial federal interest principles outlined and the dual successive presentation submission to the department. What specific federal interests justify the charge, priority should be given to crimes causing the most harm to a nation, including through widespread impact. Light of the New York State case, prosecutors must carefully assess whether that case is an effective prosecution. It is impossible for SDNY prosecutors, a capital case committee member, or indeed the Attorney General to view the New York State case as anything other than effective prosecution, as that term is used in the manual. State's case charges, among other crimes, the crime of murder, first degree, in violation of law of 5 the single most serious offense recognized in New York penal law. The sentencing for the violation of the penal law, which states in part, when a defendant is convicted of murder in the first degree, the court shall sentence the defendant to death or life imprisonment without parole, or a term of imprisonment for class 1 felony other than a sentence of life imprisonment without parole. Sorry, a lot of reading. As the Justice Manual also makes it clear that the fact that the state of New York does not currently have a death penalty does not make the state's prosecution of Mr. Mangione any less effective. Indeed, the manual seems to have contemplated the exact situation and provides that the state prosecution can be altogether effective even if it cannot legally result in capital punishment. There is no indication that the Attorney General followed any of the procedures set out in the Justice Manual. Rather, the Attorney General's directive, as well as her other public statements, focus exclusively on make America safe again. They're like robots. I mean, in my opinion, allegedly, they create situations where they're making America safe again. They refuse to believe that we see what they're doing. They refuse. They think they're so great. Like, baffling. Focus exclusively on make safe, yeah, blah. Policy, as well as her contention that the death penalty was particularly appropriate because it hadn't been done in 4 years, while a new administration must be given wide latitude to develop new different policies to help the American people. This does not include abandoning its own death penalty protocol so the government can kill a particular defendant without regard to the law or settled procedures. The Justice Manual states that to justify a federal death penalty prosecution, the aggravating factors should sufficiently outweigh the mitigating factors. Here they do not. Based on the filed federal complaint and other information provided by law enforcement, the only aggravating factor that can conceivably apply is related to the substantial planning and premeditation under Title 18 United States Code. None of the other statutory or non-statutory factors apply to the crime of or the defendant. In addition to substantial planning and premeditation, counsel alerted the government in our January 12th letter to another factor, whether the defendant knowing created a grave risk of death to one or more persons in addition to the victim of the offense. We stated that although the government may errantly consider the factor, a careful analysis of the consideration weighs against seeking the death penalty for at least 3 reasons. First, here the allegation is highly targeted shooting that took place at close range. Second, the alleged shooting occurred at a time when the streets of Manhattan were relatively empty, and there was little chance of anyone else being hurt, much less killed. Third, counts 1 and 2 of the federal complaint charged stalking of a single specific alleged victim. Indeed, the jurisdictional hook for the murder and the firearms charges in the counts 3 and 4 of the federal complaint are the very same allegations of stalking. Again, a single specific person. Therefore, to a greater extent than most cases, the federal government's own theory in this case is that Mr. Mangione posed a threat to only one person, the person he allegedly stalked, because it is clear that the aggravating factor does not apply. The Attorney General changed the wording to make it appear that it may fit this conduct when it does not. as to the only aggravating factor that should plausibly apply, substantial planning and premeditation under Title 18 United States Code. There, it appears to have been an instance where SD&I filed a notice to seek capital punishment where the sole aggravating factor was substantial planning and premeditation. We pointed out in our letter during the January 13th, 2025 virtual presentation that the substantial planning and premeditation factor is particularly weak in this case because it would virtually impossible to have the offense charged under count 3 without substantial planning and premeditation. Count 3 charges that Mangione stalked the victim with a gun by traveling in interstate commerce and murdering him. The crime itself requires substantial planning and premeditation. Simply put, it is impossible to stalk someone between states with a gun with the intent to kill the person and not also satisfy the aggravating factor of substantial planning and premeditation. In terms of mitigating factors, Mr. Mangione's background reveals an exemplary life in every aspect. Respect, he is loved, cherished son, brother, uncle, cousin, in large, close, loving family. He does. He definitely has a large family. He was valedictorian of his high school, where he led robotics team to the Eastern Regional Finals. He graduated from University of Pennsylvania in 4 years with both bachelor's and master's degree in computer science. He spent his life playing soccer, baseball, ran track, and wrestled. Compared to Mr. Mangione's life of love, support, and excellence and no criminal record, odd. Well, I mean, no, all the great life, all good things happening in his life going for him, and he just up and decided one day, yeah, Yo's got to go for no reason. Paired with Mr. Mangione's life of love, support, and excellence, no criminal record, the sole statutory aggravating factor pales in comparison. The Justice Manual requires that aggravating factors sufficiently outweigh the mitigating ones. Because they do not, capital prosecution is not warranted. Counsel pointed out that the Capital Committee of the prior administration, that since 1988, the U.S. Attorney in this district has filed notices of intent to seek death penalty in roughly 17 cases. Every one of these cases involved defendants who committed murder as part of a violent drug racketeering enterprise in furtherance of narcotics business or part of a terrorist organization. This alone is a major distinction from this case. A defendant who has joined a violent drug racketeering or terrorist enterprise has already made a commitment to significant criminal activity. This is obviously not the case with Mr. Mangione. All but 4 of the defendants were charged with multiple murders. As to each of the defendants charged with a single murder, Derek Frank, Jose Santiago, Ellen Quino, Diego Rodriguez, each defendant had already made a commitment to life of crime by joining violent drug gang and being involved in the sale of narcotics on a large scale. In addition, each defendant engaged in conduct involving aggravating factors not present here. For instance, Derek Frank killed a witness to drug activity after kidnapping and torturing the victim. Santiago was a member of the racketeering enterprise and specifically ordered the victim to be killed in front of the victim's wife and children. These 4 defendants were vastly distinct from Mr. Mangione for a host of reasons, some of which we will note here. First, each of the 4 defendants charged with one murder was involved in serious criminal activity, whether that be dealing narcotics or being a member of the violent drug racketeering enterprise. Second, all the defendants committed murder involving torture and physical abuse of the victim, which is not present here. Third, 2 others committed a contract killing of an informant. Of course, the remaining 12 defendants each committed multiple murders as a part of the violent drug enterprise and a terrorist organization. While the Attorney General stated during her television appearance that if there was ever a death case, this is the one, that statement is wholly inconsistent with the historical record of death penalty cases in this district. Given those facts and circumstances, the Attorney General's directive to seek death should be vacated and for Three related reasons. First, Attorney General has abandoned the established death penalty protocol. Second, the Attorney General's decision is arbitrary and capricious, and he has directed the death penalty where the existence of New York County District Attorney case undercuts the federal interest in the death penalty. There is only one colorable statutory aggravating factor, does not outweigh the mitigating factors. This case is so far outside the realm of the cases where SD&I has sought the death penalty. Third, the Attorney General's decision is completely and wholly political. Facts. As noted, counsel was given 5 days notice before the only meeting affording counsel with the capital case committee, which was hastily assembled in virtual Microsoft Teams meeting. In preparation for the meeting, with the limited time permitted, counsel prepared a letter that they submitted the day before the meeting. This was only submission and the only capital case committee meeting afforded to counsel. Significantly, the submission to and the meeting with the capital case committee were with one of the existing under previous administration, since change in administration, counsel has not been asked for a submission or offered the opportunity to meet with the capital case committee formed by the existing under the current administration. After counsel was informed of the prior administration's capital case committee did not reach a decision as to death penalty, counsel sent an email to SDNY prosecutors on February 6th stating that if capital crimes section is unable to make a decision based on our first submission, we respectfully request 3 months in order to give us time to conduct through mitigation investigation or additional information. Less than 2 months later, without warning, the Attorney General issued a press release with the direction to seek the death penalty. This is not a situation like with some other cases where the Department of Justice failed to follow each and every aspect of the exhaustive death penalty protocol. Rather, the wholesale rejection by Attorney General herself of the protocol of its entirety. It is not surprising that after a wholesale rejection of the death penalty protocol, the Attorney General ordered the death penalty. Counsel advanced 3 cogent reasons why the Mangione case was plainly outside of the realm of cases and the district has sought the death penalty. We pointed out specific justice manual sections stating that the federal interest in the death penalty prosecution is diminished where there is effective local prosecution, as undoubtedly the case here. Pointed out that only statutory aggravating factor could conceivably apply to the alleged conduct. In response, the Attorney General literally changed the wording of the second factor in her press release, ordering the death penalty to make it falsely appear that there were 2 applicable factors instead of 1. The Attorney General's directive to seek the death penalty under the circumstance can only be described as arbitrary caprice. Finally, listed the case where SDNY had sought the death penalty over the past 4 decades. Rather than relying on these reasons, the Attorney General cited the professional status of the victim as a CEO. The fact that the previous administration had sought the death penalty 4 years and that her decision to order it here was due to the president's policy to make America safe again. Also, if the death penalty was being ordered pursuant to policy instead of publicity, the Attorney General would not have to put her directive in the form of a press release, followed by an Instagram post that effectively launched a new government social media account. Yay! Like they needed another one. Attorney General's decision is explicitly unapologetically political. The Attorney General could hardly have been clearer as to the basis of her directive to the prosecutor seek the death penalty in this case. Carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. Not only did she explicitly cite the administration's policy to make America safe again, blah, 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 she reiterated during the televised appearance on Sunday, the president's very clear, we are seek the death penalty whenever possible. Because of the driving factor for the Attorney General ordering the death penalty was politics and not facts of the case being the mitigating factors as required to do. It is no surprise that the defense defense's request for 3 months to conduct a thorough mitigation investigation in order to submit additional was ignored. And it was ignored in Tyler Robinson's case. They had to fight, and still, I think, are, for the preliminary hearing to be postponed to a later date because of the copious amounts of digital and other evidence that they haven't even had a chance to go through. It's insane. You cannot put people on a death penalty charge and they've not even been indicted or been to court, or this is what makes it so suspicious, in my opinion. It makes it like they create these scenarios so that they can then say to America, look, we're making America safe again. No, man, none of us feel safe. We don't believe you. We don't believe you. So they just go on to fight on here for Luigi and death penalty. In fact, I do believe here. I believe they took the death penalty off the table. And I think his trial is set to start. Well, he's got two different ones, a federal and state, September of this year. Now, guys, some information. I mean, I don't know. Is it weird that when the police rolled up on him, he had a fake ID? Or yeah, but I don't think it's inconceivable that our government is capable of creating people to do certain things, in my opinion, allegedly.
Shows it was quite the trip, but not all fun and games. WhatsApp messages are revealing Mangione was actually attacked by a group of transgender women while partying in Bangkok. Mangione called them ladyboys. That's a derogatory term, but I'm actually told it's used commonly in Thailand. That incident gives us a rare glimpse into Mangione's life before he was accused of committing the cold-blooded murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last December. Mangione, of course, grew up in a Baltimore suburb, part of a well-known family with country club roots. They own nursing homes. He graduated valedictorian from the all-boys Gilman School in 2016, then earned a bachelor's and a master's degree in computer science and engineering at the University of Pennsylvania. Friends described him as intelligent and thoughtful, but he struggled with a spinal condition for years and sometimes experienced brain fog, which affected his grades. After a successful back surgery in July of 2023, he was off pain meds and ready to travel. Now, that incident in Bangkok was just the beginning. During his time there, he met two American expats. He shared stories of his life in Maryland and Hawaii, and he talked about video games and Pokemon. He showed photos of himself near a volcano. He discussed artificial intelligence, and he commented on the high cost of healthcare back home, surprised at how cheap an MRI was in Thailand. He lost his phone in a taxi, explored local tattoo shops, and documented it all in WhatsApp messages. Now, for months after Thailand, Mangione, he seemed to vanish. Family and friends couldn't reach him. Social media, no sight of him. His mom even reported him missing to San Francisco police. Investigators now say this was the period during which he was quietly plotting his next move. New details.
I mean, does that not seem like that might have been the period he was being, maybe had a handler? I mean, that's just my opinion. Could be guilty as sin, I don't know. But it just seems like there is a hell of pattern here. And it's so obvious with Tyler Robinson. They changed up just very little.
Details from the New York Times show a man shifting from adventure to solitude, from partying to reflection, and according to his diary entries, from exploration to strategic planning. After Thailand, he headed to Japan, seeking solitude in the Nara Mountains and at Mount Omine, a sacred site since the 7th century where Shagundo practitioners climb treacherous ridges to test courage and find supernatural powers. On May 6, 2024, it was Luigi's 26th birthday. He checked into a tiny guest house in Tenkawa, the entry point to Mount Omine. He booked the only available room, called the Hunter, overlooking cedar-capped peaks and a roaring river. He spent 6 days there meditating, reading, writing, and, quote, zenning out, as he told one of his friends. The inn's owner said that Mangione left his room spotless, took out his own trash, and spoke only when necessary. He avoided digital devices and kept to himself. According to his friends and his diaries, he was thinking deeply about injustices in America's healthcare system and how he could make a statement. During his trip, he also met writer Jash Dulani in Mumbai, India, attempting to buy 400 copies of Dulani's book. This is all according to the New York Times, of course. They discussed logic, philosophy, and social impact. By July 2024, Mangione had returned to the U.S., laying low in San Francisco. According to his diaries, he was sleeping poorly and feeling foggy, but also becoming increasingly certain about his next move. Prosecutors say the writings, allegedly penned by Mangione, offer a rare window into his mindset in the weeks leading up to the shooting. In one entry dated August 15th, 2024, he reportedly wrote, 1 month in SF, that means San Francisco, crazy slow, lack of urgency, lack of routine/plan, schedule, exercise, C spiral, RE catch 22. That said, I finally feel confident about what I will do. The details are finally coming together, and I don't feel any doubt about whether it's right/justified. I'm glad, in a way, that I've procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about UHC. KMD would have been an unjustified catastrophe that would be perceived mostly as sick, but more importantly, unhelpful, would do nothing to spread awareness/improve people's lives. I'm feeling foggy, so I can't work with speed.
Seems again strange to me when we know that they're capable of the MK and so much more. Feeling foggy, he's feeling not right. And then, of course, on this one in
In
particular,
furtherance of terrorism. Very new questions are
titled Mangione's Mom Makes Shocking Confession About Alleged Shooter. Sound familiar?
arising about what exactly Luigi Mangione's mother knew about her son before his arrest in the United Healthcare killing out in New York. A statement from a recent press conference made our ears perk up as we look into this, and we bring on former homicide prosecutor Matt Murphy to break it all down. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey, so before we jump into this first in this United Healthcare CEO shooting that we want to talk about, aside from the fact that extradition just happened like 5 minutes ago, I'll explain what he decided to do, but the latest that we haven't really talked about is what's being reported, including from the USA Today, that the mother of the suspected shooter, Luigi Mangione, allegedly told authorities before Mangione was arrested that this shooting might be something that she could see him doing. Process that for a second. So we know Mangione is accused of shooting to death Brian Thompson back on December 4th in Midtown Manhattan as the health insurance executive was on his way to the company's annual investor conference. And we know that after a 5-day manhunt, Mangione was apprehended in Altoona, Pennsylvania in a McDonald's after he was identified based on these surveillance photos from New York that was circulated around the country by authorities. And we also know that he's just been indicted on 11 counts in New York, including 3 counts of murder, 2.
And that totally did not look like the same person, in my opinion. Maybe it's just the hat that made him look different, but it didn't look like the same guy.
of those, including first-degree murder, which carries a sentence of life in prison, are murders committed in furtherance of terrorism. Very, very aggressive, and we can talk a little bit more about that, and I'll be curious to see if prosecutors will be able to prove it. But he was also hit with weapon possession and forgery charges out in Pennsylvania. And that was really interesting because it became a question, would he stay there, fight the charges? There's going to be a preliminary hearing, but also, will he have to be extradited back to New York? Again, we'll talk about that. But now I have to get to this issue of his mother. And I will tell you, I think that this is really, really interesting. So there had been reports that Mangione's mother had filed a missing persons report for her son back on November 18th. And according to CNN, a law enforcement official indicated that she hadn't spoken to her son since July. So, how did it come to be that she allegedly indicated her son might be capable of doing something like this? Well, NYPD Chief of Detectives Joseph Kenney was asked about this at a news conference the other day when the indictment of Mangione was announced. Listen to what he had to say.
So the original missing report took place back in November 18th in San Francisco. The sergeant that was involved in that case reached out to the San Francisco field office and said, hey, basically, I'm working on a missing case. I saw the photograph that was distributed by the NYPD. There bears a resemblance. That tip was forwarded to us close to 45 hours after the incident took place. It showed up to a TFO, which is a task force officer. We have NYPD officers embedded with the FBI. They received that tip. It was one of 4 tips that they had received that day, and they were vetting it. Part of that vetting process was that they reached out to Mangione's mother in San Francisco very late on the 7th. They had a conversation where she didn't indicate that it was her son in the photograph, but she said it might be something that she could see him doing. So that information was going to be passed along to the detectives the next morning, but fortunately we apprehended him before we could act on that.
So why would that be the case, right? If she really said that, why? And remember, a friend of Mangione, Aaron Cranston, revealed to the New York Times that he received a message indicating that Mangione's family was looking for him. We know there was reporting that Mangione was becoming more and more isolated, potentially more extreme online. He had this online activity, seemed to reveal these odd ideological leanings. Particularly, I've cited this before, this Goodreads review from earlier this year of the manifesto of the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, in which Mangione apparently gave the book a 4-star rating. Now, Mangione's cousin, Nino Mangione, issued a statement.
Again, not inconceivable that our feds are on there messing with this kid's head. Like it's the same scenario no matter which way you put it. Crazy leftists, left and right. They have created and instilled this fear into us at the beginning of time.
Statement on behalf of the family and made it clear that they didn't know anything prior to the news of his arrest. It said, "We cannot comment on news reports regarding Luigi Mangione. We only know what we have read in the media. Our family is shocked and devastated by Luigi's arrest. We offer our prayers to the family of Brian Thompson, and we ask people to pray for all involved." But I got to get some perspective on this. So let me bring back on friend of the show, former homicide prosecutor Matt Murphy. Matt, good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on. So before we even get into the mother, like 5 minutes before we came on, we found out that Luigi Mangione in Pennsylvania has waived his extradition, which means now he is going to be transported immediately back to New York. You surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. This is something you see all the time in murder cases where somebody will either flee to another state or they'll be in from another state when they commit the murder, and extraditing somebody from another state in America is actually really easy to do. They're entitled to process, but you're going to get them 100% of the time. So his lawyers, he's got a very capable defense team here. They knew that, and they made the decision to just get this case up to New York, where it's ultimately going to be no matter what.
Like, don't waste the time and the resources of trying to fight this, like the legal expense of fighting it. You know, you're going to lose. You're going to lose extradition.
You're going to lose extradition,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so now I want to talk about this issue with the mother, because what do you make of that statement?
Well, I think that, number one, it's important for everybody to remember that the family here is not at fault. Okay, the family was cooperative with law enforcement. The family also, I read some things that they'd actually submitted a missing persons report with San Francisco when they were trying to find them towards the end of the summer. So I think that this is one of those things that they've probably just heard one too many rants. And when the mother said she could see her son doing that, that's obviously very significant from an investigative perspective. But the question is, do they need that at this point? And I think based on this evidence, the answer to that is no. You get a 3-page manifesto that is a statement of intent that's already in there. Right? You know, I think that Alvin Bragg won't be prosecuting this case himself. I think that whoever he has is going to be capable, and this will be the type of thing that I don't think we're going to see too many family members on the stand.
Do you think, though, they're being interviewed?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, the family has already been interviewed.
For what information? What do you think?
For motive, for plans, for schemes. Who else might he have been mad at? Are there any other murders? They're going to cross every T and dot every I in this investigation, and that's going to include interviewing the family, who, based on everything that I've reviewed, appears to be totally cooperative and doing everything right.
And I know when she was speaking, we mentioned this, when she was speaking to law enforcement, she couldn't 100% confirm that that was her son. And by the way, I think there's going to be maybe a separate argument. You look at the surveillance photos, some people look at them and be like, yeah, it looks like him. And there's others like, no, I'm not entirely sure. So I think that's kind of understandable. But then again,
I don't think this one in particular I think it looks like a girl. Again, low quality pictures.
And it was those photos what led to his identification as arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania. I thought that was significant that it was reported that that happened. Look, I hate to ask this question, but I have to ask this question. We live in a day and age where separate scenarios, but when we deal with school shootings, right? These are people who are underage. You ask, what did the parents know? Was it foreseeable? Should they be held liable? Obviously, he's an adult male. But if there was evidence, and again, there is no evidence to suggest this whatsoever, but that statement just made me wonder, if there was evidence that they knew he maybe was capable of something, maybe they didn't know that he was going to do something like this, they couldn't be held liable, right? They couldn't be held liable on a civil side or even a criminal side?
Well, on a criminal side, they certainly couldn't. There's no obligation in any state to take affirmative action to prevent a crime, okay? If they help in some way, or if they facilitate, aid, abet, or encourage, that's a different story than they could, but we have no evidence of that. And based on everything that I've read about the family, everything that they've said publicly or the representatives have, I doubt there's going to be anything along those lines that we're going to see. I think this is a young guy who got his head twisted up onto this, and he had this zeal against corporate America and the healthcare specifically. One of the interesting things, Jesse, that I think in that manifesto is he said these parasites, plural.
Yes.
And you know, I've seen some crazy conspiracy stuff online, which, by the way, it's like, this is what happens in murder cases. I've had murder cases where there's been backpacks with a cornucopia of evidence like we see in this. So this really is the way these things work a lot of times. If they plan it out, they get very good at figuring out how to get away from the murder.
Again, look how crappy the video is. It's right up there with as shitty as 2024, it being 2025, and Charlie Kirk, no good advancement in cameras, apparently.
Seen and not so good about getting away with the murder, because this appears to be his first crime.
Seems to be the only clear photo.
But you know, parasites, plural, is interesting, and that may go a long way to explain why he still had this weapon, why he still had this fake IDs, and why they
Personally, don't think that looks like the same dude. But it could.
hadn't caught him yet.
You mean targeting potentially other?
Very well might be. And one of the things that everybody's been talking about in this case that I think is very interesting is the reaction on social media.
Sure.
He's a handsome young guy, and we see people saying, you know, violence is bad, but we've seen officials like Elizabeth Warren came out and said something like that. Bernie Sanders said something like that. This professor at Penn said she was proud to be a University of Penn professor because of what he did. And look, murder is murder. There's no murder's bad, but, you know, that's like a domestic violence case where some man kills his wife. You know, we don't in the courtroom engage in a big, well, what did she do to deserve it? Did she say something like, was she cheating on him? Like, that's not what it's about. It's murder is murder is bad, and this whole thing where people are trying to take advantage of it. and is exactly the purpose of terrorism. In the state of New York, it's about trying to influence public policy.
I was going to ask you about that. Look, I've been screaming on the rooftops that I think it's insane that people are praising this, or seemingly supporting it. But let me ask you this: the terrorism charges, right? Some would say, you know, I get that, right? You know, if it's done to send a message, if it's done to change policy, if it's done to, you know, it's done in the middle of the streets of New York City, it was done to terrorize. So this is the language, what you would need to trigger the terrorism component. The defendant, with intent to cause the death of another person, caused the death of Brian Thompson, and said person was killed in furtherance of an act of terrorism involving a violent act and acts dangerous to human life that were in violation of the criminal laws of this state and were intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policies of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion, and affect the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping. How does it fit here?
Well, I think it fits broadly. The DA's office is going to argue that this is an attempt to influence public policy. This is an attempt to influence government policy towards healthcare and or the.
So, if he was so against the policy, hi, Bill. He was so against the policy. I mean, certainly there would be some kind of best friend or family member that it affected to be angry at United Healthcare CEO. Why? Why him? Why that company? He was a well-off kid. He had health insurance. To our knowledge, nobody has came out about him having a friend or anybody that was denied coverage to be so extreme. It just doesn't make sense.
Healthcare corporations themselves. So that's where the argument's going to come from, that this man was murdered because of the way healthcare operates in the United States, and this is an attempt to influence public policy. That's going to be the argument that's coming their way.
Would it be a successful argument?
It's an interesting thing, right? Because what the defense is going to argue here is they're going to say, yeah, he hated him because of that, but he wasn't actually trying to take that additional step and impact policy. Now, I've only seen part of the manifesto.
Can I read you a few?
Yeah.
Can I read you a few statements?
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. I'm just going to read you a few statements from so it was not only the manifesto, but it was also this notebook that was found as well. To the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. I do apologize.
Come on now. The only person that's going to write in there to the feds, I respect what you do, is a fed. That's a joke. Nobody respects what they do, except for themselves. Because they don't do anything. They make up shit and crap people. That's what the feds do. So, yes, this is the happenings on him. His trial will start. Well, one of the two.
An indictment against. Good afternoon. Today, a grand jury sitting in the Eastern District of North Carolina returned an indictment against James Comey on 2 counts. The first count is that on or about May 15th of last year, he knowingly and willfully making a threat to take the life of and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States. Count 2, same day, May 15th, 2025, that the defendant, James Comey, knowingly and willfully transmitting in interstate commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill the President of the United States. Both of these counts carry a maximum term of imprisonment of 10 years. Good afternoon.
So, they went after James Comey, but didn't want to investigate or know anything further about Butler. I mean, he's had, 3 attempts on his life? Including this. I hope everybody should go on and share this video because these guys are assholes and they're on a hot mic, and I hope they've seen themselves on this hot mic being the predictable assholes they are.
I love that they have like 2 random chicks holding the front door open. We're not even trying anymore. It's not even like, I just mean like they're not even like Secret Service people. It's like the girls who work here are holding the door. Even if it was the guys, it wouldn't even make it better. It's like she's fucking just like they might as well put a doorstop in. Like, what the they put up a doorstop and a scarecrow. Don't fuck with this guy. I love that they have like.
Reckon he turned around and seen that was active and hot and probably was like, oh shit.
Investigation.
So we get slammed with the constant, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, crime is down, and we've deported gazillions, and our leader.
As you heard from the Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney, former FBI Director James Comey has now been indicted for 2 felony counts. While many of you may read this indictment and view this matter as a simple investigation, it is the farthest thing from that. Every single investigation this FBI and our partners at the Department of Justice undertake, especially those that involve the threats to harm or hurt or even kill individuals, whether they hold public office or civilians in our country, are met with the same measure of investigative prowess and tools and personnel in partnership with the Department of Justice as anyone else. As the U.S. Attorney indicated, James Comey will be afforded every matter of due process under the United States Constitution. And as the Attorney General indicated, this has been a case that's been investigated over the past 9, 10, 11 months. These cases take time. Our investigators work methodically. They are career agents, career prosecutors who work these matters. They call the balls and strikes in the field as they see fit pursuant to the facts of the case and the law. They took that information and made a presentment to a grand jury, a jury of peers in the district in which the alleged crime took place. And that grand jury spoke, and that grand jury returned a 2-count indictment against James Comey. As you heard.
Oh. Wonder if he ever thinks to himself that he could be in that same situation one day. Does it ever cross his mind that the next administration, or you might piss off Trump and you might be in the same boat one day? Because God, when all his dirt comes out, oof, not gonna be good. And it was so scary for these people that they're snatching up bottles of wine. Yep. Shots were just fired. Get that wine. You cannot make this up. It is insane. And I came across this and I had to play it.
3.5.
Erica and say off.
So I met Candace at an event back in November, and Candace, fact check me if I'm wrong, I think I hired you 4.5 minutes after I met you.
I think it was 3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes.
It was very aggressive. He was like, "You sit down, stay here. I'm going to get you a contract. I need you to sign the contract and get it back to me."
Right,
I was like,
sign
okay,
right here. DocuSign. It's okay, you never heard of it. Just right here. Just
yeah,
initial.
just write your name. I just need you to move your finger, and the deal was done. And the rest, as we say, is history in the making.
It's history. And for those of you that follow kind of our path and our journey closely, it's been quite a 7 or 8 months. And Turning Point was on an amazing trajectory at the time, and now it's just gone exponential. And I believe today, what I knew back then, Candace is unlike any other conservative voice that we've encountered. And because she's confident,
thank you guys.
She's articulate, she's charismatic, she's fierce, she's funny, she's direct. And what she has done is she has successfully been able to go between the worlds of culture and politics, something that conservatives are not supposed to do.
I do hope that this is TPUSA off regularly, but not on the front. Darn it. try to take it out. Like, that's, they weren't friends anymore. How about that ballroom? Odd, yeah? Odd. Whole wave of everybody pray for Erica, and then a whole wave of why we need that ballroom. Kind of think we don't. Kind of think there's something terrifying about that. Got here. Snapping again. Hit with the music. He is. He's falling asleep. Biden. Does not look that great, does he? I guess lies and stress will do that to you. Won't look that well, I don't think. Excuse me, get out of my way. He's such an asshole. I'm sorry. He is an asshole. Look at her. She's standing back there like, well, damn. God forbid she say anything. She'd get mopped up. Mopped up. Like the girl from Fox. You're a disgrace. Who says that? She was asking questions about the manifesto that they were talking about. You're a disgrace. Quite literally unheard of. Like, get the hell out of office. He's got to go. He's really losing his shit. Now, oh, how about Erica? She's taking a break. Gonna spend some time at home with the kids. You reckon it's because everybody has said, God forbid you did that first. You had to push it, push it, and push it. You make it the last thing you do. Oh, we're out of options. Maybe we should have listened. I stay home with the kids for a minute.
That believe that what happens is disinformation and misinformation online. There will be bite-sized clips that will go viral to the point where there are Americans in this country that believe that what happened Saturday night was staged. How does this White House tackle that with social media companies out there, whether it's X, Facebook, Instagram? How do they work with these companies to make sure that doesn't get out of control?
It's certainly a good question, Aisha.
They're gonna hold us down in the algorithm like they always do. That's it. We're gonna be held down in an algorithm. Gosh, and she didn't help the cause by saying that there was gonna be shots fired. Goodness. Goodness. All fake. Look how shitty that video is. That's a place where they held a event with the president of the United States with that grainy ass video footage. Police know damn well that it's the same way with Charlie Kirk. Everything that they could make it, they couldn't make it anymore grainier or crappier video. For people putting it in AI to try and clean it up. Ew.
First Jewish president to serve two. And I said, this is our first Jewish president. No, he's the first Jewish president to serve two not consecutive presidencies. We thank you for everything. And I said, this is our first Jewish president.
Yeah. Yes. Indeed. Also strange. There is a level of evil there that just cannot be described.
Shrapnel from a miniature together from the emails and other intelligence sources. Charlie Kirk was never shot with a bullet. He was accidentally decapitated by a piece of shrapnel from a miniature explosive planted inside his micro. The device was supposed to blow out his chest cavity, but the explosive malfunctioned. Instead of detonating downward, it ripped upward and took his neck. That is why security immediately ripped every device off the stage. That is why the security camera behind Charlie was yanked from the wall on live feed. That is why they literally stole his body from the scene before the coroner could arrive. That is why Netanyahu went on television within minutes to say it wasn't Israel before anyone had even asked. That is why the FBI took forever to find the killer. They had to rush manufacture evidence to match the lie. Together from the emails and other intelligence sources. Charlie Kirk was never shot with a bullet. He was accidentally.
I already thought that. And the people in other countries think it. Not missing. Burns everybody's ass that they don't know where she is and why she's not on. Graham. Erica Kirk is not stepping down. But she will eventually. Send him with another bell or anything. Oh, here we go. Here's somebody that should be charged. Can't wait. Can't wait until they have pissed off this administration or went against his word, because it's going to happen. They're going to be facing charges.
I know what's coming, but listen, I will never be the same, and I'm being as serious as a stroke right now. Look, I'm scared, man. Like I know what I did, and I'm proud of my work, and I'm proud of what me and Cash accomplished in the past year. Beyond proud. I know what we did. I know what's coming. I know what I started. Some of I know what I laid out, and I know it's all, you saw a lot of these cases coming out over the past few days even. But don't think for a second that I don't think every day, and this is what's really sad, and this is why I know, and I never thought this after reading that enough Friday night, that they're going to come for me. And listen, man, it's not a sob story. I knew what I was getting into. But it happened to the president, and he went through just the worst just destruction of his civil liberties I've ever seen. But I say to my wife all the time, I know, Sean, I can look you in the face as a friend, tell you and your millions of viewers and listeners, I promise you everything I did with a dotted I and a crossed T. I brought in my own attorney from the outside, person I trusted. A wonderful, wonderful person. I said, no, everything is going to be by the book. Everything. I'm confident in that. And you know what? It don't matter. They'll rewrite the book, just like they did for President Trump. And I said to my wife, I said,
they'll rewrite the book. Not him, because this is the very same guy that was on public TV, Fox News, saying that it's a conspiracy that the Brian Cole Jr. had government influence to get sworn as an FBI agent, and then say that they have the right guy. But we make it up.
you know, I got a 14-year-old The presidency could change. I hope it doesn't in a little over 2 years. You don't think on election night, if we lose, like it's not going through my head, like they're going to send some thugs to my house? I was never the same after that, because after reading what I read about how many people did this to President Trump, this Russia hoax, collusion, crossfire hurricane bullshit, and not a single person stopped them, I'm terrified that they're just not going to do the right thing when they're in charge.
What? What? How can it get any more terrifying than these asshats that are in charge right now? Boy, he's in court? Wait a minute, what? All his war stuff isn't stopping him from being in court? Doesn't sound like he's got a good reception either, does he? Oh gosh, he's in court. I can't wait to see what gets ramped up now to stop him from going to jail. Because that's why we're at war and everything else. Whether Comey is convicted or not, I am reminded today of just how bizarre and absurd it was that he posted that picture at all. Oh, and they had, like, we're reminded every day of how bizarre and absurd it is that you people come out and just feel the need to even open your mouth. The more you open it, the worse it looks. I think maybe if Erica's taking a break, she's finally getting.
You know, and, you know, just to see the way that my concern in the moment was just for Erica, for Mikey, others, you know, and
Mikey was there. I didn't even see Mikey. He must have hauled ass like Blake Knipp's speed.
You know, just to see the way that the reaction has been from this moment. And we're going to get into the details. We're going to get into the Secret Service, the perimeter. We have Susan Crabtree joining us next. We've got a great show in store for you. But my reaction is just that a shock and horror that people are alleging that Erica's reaction was somehow, you know, performative. Up yours.
Oh, yeah,
up yours.
Screw those people. That's disgusting.
Secondly, that this was staged to get sympathy for Trump or for, even for Erica or Turning Point. Up yours. Screw you.
This is actually a good test. Like, if you are a person where it is reasonable to you.
Very powerful stuff. Andrew Colvette, up yours. That was the best you could come up with, my guy. Up yours. Because we're not all looking at video of you dumbasses in a supposed shooting standing around looking stupid as hell and stealing wine, acting like nothing is happening. So up yours, Andrew. Up yours.
That assassination attempts are faked, are staged. Just stop opining on public events, because your brain is too cooked by television, by movies, by memes you read on the internet to think rationally about things.
Listen,
period.
Yeah, I understand COVID. That was a whole like op. I get it.
What? He gets it? He's owning it? So it was an op, but you just don't believe that there is other ops that you might be involved in.
The Russia hoax, op. I get there's reasons to be distrustful and to hold elected leaders' feet to the fire. I'm all on board with that. But for real, if you are going to assume that everything is the freaking Jews or everything is some staged 5D chess move and that leftists don't want you dead, I've got about 48 minutes of clips loaded up today to prove you wrong, to prove that you are missing the big E on the eye chart. And I said it before, but I'll say it again. When Charlie was with us, he was not afraid of the Jews. He was afraid of purple-haired jihadists that wanted him dead. He was afraid of trannies. He was afraid of wild, violent assassination culture that's running amok on the left.
No.
And if you can't get it through your freaking head yet, I have nothing for you. To Blake's point, get off the internet. You are cooked. Your brain is toast.
No, sir. We will not get off the internet. We will not stop covering this. And our brains are not toast. You just suck. Suck. And trying to instill fear into us with the whole left, right, and the extreme bullshit, not working anymore. Sorry, guys. Just not. So, Andrew, you're going to have to make something else up. Believe this either. Crazy ass Laura Loomer. Oh, and you know, when he was texting his security detail, he thought he was in fear for his life. It wasn't because of some purple-haired or trans person. It was because of Israel, not anybody else. But they can clean that up and make it however they want. It's all lies. I don't anything to distract from what's happening. Canceling a lot of events is because she's not being received well at all by anybody.
Intelligence report, and by the way, I understand the FBI is investigating who was the source of that leak because it's an illegal leak to CNN. And this is the same fake news CNN reporter who wrote the story alleging that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, which we know is one of the greatest political hoaxes this country and the American public have ever seen. And that CNN story does not change the facts. There was a total and complete obliteration of Iran's nuclear facilities, and because of the president's strike, because of the precision of our United States military and this perfectly executed mission, Iran no longer has the capability to produce a nuclear weapon as imminently as they did prior to the strike. The American people and the world should be grateful for that, and it's disgusting that CNN and the New York Times are disparaging not just the president, but our brave men and women who helped conduct this highly successful operation.
And what kind of consequence could the leaker face?
So, you killed innocent people. I'm not attacking the military that is over there doing what they're commanded to do. But yeah, no, fuck you and your administration. And if they're just getting big mad because nobody's having your shit no more. Nobody's buying your lies. Furthermore, somebody needs to hold this guy up and give him an Adderall or something because he's having a hard time staying awake. Ugh. They look terrified, don't they? Terrified. Go, Trump on the White House ballroom. No. No. You cannot have the ballroom. No, somebody has to stop that. There is some kind of weird, gross shit going on about that ballroom. Oh, they are so stretching. They're really stretching, guys. It they don't know what else to do. They've ran through all of the influencers, the Gary Meltons, and everybody that they could possibly run through. It hasn't got any better for them. It's not going away. And I just checked again today for any response to the motions filed by Tyler Robinson's attorneys for the contempt. I don't see anything yet. And I quite literally don't see how it could be anything other than contempt. It is 100% wholly proven in every single thing that they said in that document. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Sure, we'll tell a lot about the judge, I think. My opinion, allegedly. So now they're indicting people. Why did it take so long? You're simply just trying to do whatever
Now,
you
it
can.
is, Bill. The Justice Department has charged David Morans, a doctor.
So you knew this before today. You've known this for a long time. Nobody was going to face charges. And by the way, we have a problem with you letting Ghislaine Maxwell out. It's not okay. But go ahead, pass out your indictments to pacify us and make us, in your opinion, think that we think you're doing something. You're not.
Dr. Anthony Fauci now facing criminal charges. This over an alleged cover-up involving research into the origins of COVID. Rich Edson on this story. Intriguing, Rich. What you find out there in Washington?
Now, it is, Bill. The Justice Department has charged David Morans, a doctor, with conspiracy, claiming he concealed federal records to counter evidence that COVID-19 may have leaked from a lab in China, all to help restore a controversial coronavirus grant. Morans, a former aide to Dr. Anthony Fauci, testified before the House's COVID Select Subcommittee nearly 2 years ago about emails he'd sent in February 2021, claiming that he'd learned to make emails disappear after he received Freedom of Information Act requests.
Nodding out too back there.
Ever delete or attempt to delete a federal record?
No, but let me explain why. When I came there in 1998, we were instructed to delete emails or to move them into PST files frequently because they jammed the computer.
The Justice Department says Morans used his personal Gmail account to exchange non-public information. The indictment also claims an unnamed co-conspirator gave Morans wine for his, quote, behind-the-scenes shenanigans, then suggested he could push scientific commentary in a prominent medical journal advocating that COVID-19 had natural origins. That's a competing claim with the lab leak theory. The indictment says the co-conspirator could also provide meals at top restaurants in Paris, New York, and Washington, D.C. In April 2020, the NIH terminated that back coronavirus grant awarded to EcoHealth Alliance, who then contracted the Wuhan Institute of Virology to conduct that research in China. From the start of the pandemic, its president, Peter Daszak, worked to discredit any theory that COVID-19 had leaked from that lab.
Okay.
Bill?
All right. Thank you, Rich. More to come.
What is the guy's name? Not Fauci, but the super rich guy with the glasses, and he owns everything, and he's over the vaccine. What is his name? Anybody? Because that guy's never going to face charges, even though he's the one that's pushing it, even though he was over in other countries giving children oral or shot polio and disfiguring them. He'll never face charges. All they're doing. They're just putting out a handful of indictments of, oh, sorry, you're gonna have to take one for the team, guys. Which I hope Kash Patel and Dan Bongino knows. Eventually, they're gonna have to take one for the team too. Pam did. It's all gonna come back around eventually. All of them. Because at all costs, Trump is gonna moving forward with this bullshit. We must build the ballroom. It's so crazy, you know, because Candace isn't on, so they don't have anybody else to pick on. Yeah, Trump doesn't seem to care about the midterms. Why is that? And by the way he looks, he doesn't even look like, and all the assassination attempts, he probably wouldn't even live till then. He looks rough. Tell me how 3 times? If it's the 3rd time, you mean to tell me nobody was even getting close? I mean, Butler is bullshit, so.
Okay, so this is like crazy, and there's almost like too much to relay. So I'm going to try to make it brief. But obviously, there's the Trump event, the Charlie Kirk event, and it all feels connected. And I really think that Naomi Whistledown and I have found like the hornet's nest in this whole kerfuffle, or at least one hornet's nest. Okay, so I've been talking about the fact that this guy, his name is Ralph Perkins, called in to the FBI and said that one of his servers saw Tyler Robinson at his steakhouse. It's called the Cowboy Smokehouse Steakhouse. Candace Owens then broke this story. But it turns out there's so much more to the story. Basically, the Lieutenant Governor, Deidre Henderson, was at the Cowboy Smokehouse Steakhouse 6 days before the shooting for a commissioner's meeting. Spencer Cox is a fan of the Smokehouse Steakhouse. And then there's Ralph Perkins, the owner. Ralph Perkins and his brother Danny Perkins own the Perkins Family Ranch. Danny Perkins was the sheriff of Garfield County until 2024. Tyler Robinson's grandmother lives in Panguitch, and Tyler Robinson's great aunt was the mayor of Panguitch. She also owned a steakhouse literally just half a mile on the same street as the Cowboy Smokehouse Steakhouse. That relative, Jeanette Robinson Oldham, has a son. Her son worked for years as deputy sheriff under Danny Perkins. This is Matt Robinson, Tyler's dad's cousin. The Perkins have been involved in a number of controversies, including allegations that they prevent drug raids. And also, Danny Perkins' son was arrested trafficking drugs and guns to Las Vegas. There's also a huge component to do with the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. Now enter Mitch Snow. Mitch Snow hails from the ATF Fast and Furious gun running era, and in around 2010, randomly changes his name and becomes head of communications for the Utah Bureau of Land Management. In his role, he went to DC quite a bit. That was around the same time that the Uranium One scandal was going down. The timing of it is interesting because up until that point, Danny Perkins was having some major tensions with the BLM. It was also around the time when Phil Lyman was having the whole controversy. He was arrested for protesting BLM policies. Spencer Cox has been supporting Phil Lyman's political opponent, Celeste Malloy, whose family was very involved in the Bundy incident that got Phil Lyman arrested. And the Cowboy Smokehouse Steakhouse seemed to support her as well. I have so much more for you guys. It's very clear in my mind now, and I don't know how to quite convey it all to you, but you just have to read all the articles on my Substack and let me know what you think. And also, if you could like share my videos, I would really appreciate it because I really think I'm being throttled like crazy right now.
You are, dear, you are, but I got you. We are going to support. Because it is quite intensive. It's hard to relay. You have so much information in your head. Add props to her. Quite difficult when there's so much fuckery going on. Hard to keep it all together. Like I had so much. I mean, I have a book of names and people that I cross run and run. The amount of weird, crazy shit that comes up. The ranches are like a big thing. Sorry, Bill. I know you have a ranch. I'm not saying your ranch is involved. Now, if you were in the government, I might be a little sus of it, Bill. And that's not even to... If anybody's seen all the Instagram posts of Erica before Charlie, she had a bestie named JoJo. Good looking guy that was supposedly your best friend. Well, he lives in Utah too. I mean, it had to be done in Utah because Phil Lyman, I wholeheartedly, in my opinion, Phil Lyman is in this whole mess, and I do believe that Adam Bartholomew and so many others. and it's gonna come out. It's gonna come out. Like, these people keep doing things in public where cell phones are. They should have maybe collected everybody's cell phone at this event, the presidential dinner or whatever. It's gonna be video, and people are gonna see with their own eyes just how ridiculous it looks and is. And that's exactly what happens. I don't know why they don't get this. uh it's almost it's too sad to be funny.
Really attractive. I also saw a lot of very strong, physically strong, really attractive law enforcement people come through those doors. I also saw a lot of very strong, physically.
You know what the word is on him being in the EP files? Bill Clinton. Yeah, look at them all. Definitely about more than a ballroom. So, what do you think, guys? What do you think? We got a Luigi Mangione. I will cover his trial when it starts in September. Obviously, we got hearings coming up in May for Tyler. Covering that. Definitely going to let you know the outcome on Horner, Texas, from the death penalty phase of his trial. And we're going to keep covering this, and we're just going to keep on keeping on until hopefully eventually they see that they got to get a better script or something. I don't know. But something different has to happen or change. I don't know. Oh, and I know that was another one. David Burke went to court today, but I didn't have access to it, so I can get whatever motion for court records that was put out there. I will get them. Hopefully, I'll be able to get them tomorrow. Oh, and Ray and I also found some interesting stuff with Congress, with Kash Patel being under investigation. Did we not, Ray? But we can't pull the files because it's only in Congress. Ray, do you remember what it was investigation for? I got so many different ones running in my head, I can't remember. Oh, it did. Yes. Yes. I had her cracking up because she's like, what does that even mean? What is Operation Arctic Frost? This has got to be a mistake. I'm like, no, sadly, it's not. It didn't until it did, right? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Operation Arctic Frost. Like, you know what? I think that has something to do with the election and tampering with it. And she's like, no, I don't think so. I think that had to do with Biden. I was like, pretty sure it was Trump. Yeah, it was Trump. But there is an Operation Arctic Frost that's in Congress right now, being investigated on Kash Patel. I won't mention, Tyler Boyer was charged with election fraud as well as the senator there. And, Trump pardoned him. Imagine. Oh, yeah. that's it, guys. That is all I have for you tonight. And we're digging. Ray and I have come up with a good game plan and quite a few good places to get some really good sourced information. And I love you, Ray. You're killing it on helping mom. Yep. That's it, guys. I'm out. I will see you again tomorrow. Love you, daughter. You're the best. Seriously. This is me and Ray. This is me and Ray YouTube here. He does a lot of work. But that's it, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow, 8:30, same time. I'm going to try to keep it consistent. I miss Diana. I didn't see her in here tonight. Lainey, it was so good to see you. I hope 8:30 is working for you. Like, subscribe, share, please, guys. And buried in algorithm. It helps tremendously. And until then, I will see you guys tomorrow at 8:30. Bye, Lainey and Bill and Joshua and whoever else is on there that I cannot see. Bye to you. Hope to see you again tomorrow. And Diana, when you do see this, we missed you. So yeah, love y'all. Like, subscribe, share, turn on notifications. I will see you again tomorrow. Good night.